What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for March 26, 2023. Let's start with today's Philly sports women's history spotlight. Today, we're going to spotlight Vivian Stringer, and she is from Fayette County, Pennsylvania. Which is like the southwest kind of bottom corner of PA, kind of PA, West Virginia, Maryland, sort of just all border Fayette County. She went to Slippery Rock, where she starred as a basketball player. She played some other sports there as well, but she made her name as a coach. She coached at Cheney State from 1972 to 1983. She reached the Final Four in 1982, the first and only coach ever, anybody, to take a historically black college and university team to the Final Four. Excuse me, my throat is bothering me today, so I apologize early if it sounds crazy. But she's the only one to ever do that, male or female. From there, she went to Iowa, where she took them to the Final Four in 1993. From there, she jumped to Rutgers, where she made two Final Fours in 2005 and 2006. She was the very first coach, male or female, to take three teams to the Final Four. She's a Hall of Famer. She's made four Final Fours. She won the Big East tournament in 2007, Women's NIT Championship in 2014, numerous Coach of the Year's honors. I was going to list them all, but she was just that good that there was just so many over multiple years. She won the 2004 gold medal as an assistant coach of the Olympics. She's meant a lot to Dawn Staley. We mentioned last week that Dawn wore the Cheney State jersey at the press conference. Pretty cool moment to kind of pay homage to her. Now, I want to go back one last thing before we wrap up with Vivian Stringer. She was the first coach of anybody to take three teams to the Final Four, three different teams. The only other two to do that were Rick Pitino and John Calipari, even though technically John Calipari, two of his don't count. So, I mean, that's pretty damn good company to keep. And the fact that she was the very first one to do it is, I think, pretty cool. So we shout out Vivian Stringer for today's Philly Sports Women's History Spotlight for today. All right. Don't forget, check out this week's edition of Back to the Future. We did the Phillies preview. Check that out wherever you get your podcast. The YouTube link is up as well. Flyers won again last night, 3-0 over the Red Wings. They're still in that sweet spot, but we mentioned yesterday the way the lottery rules work, so we want to make sure they finish under at least 22nd or worse. They're currently still in 26th. I did see a couple people, I don't know if they're listening to the podcast or what, a couple people on Twitter were talking about, well, the NHL could, in theory, put Connor Bedard and fix the lottery. Again, not saying they fix it, but wouldn't be a bad thing. So we'll see how that plays out. Sixers lost another tough one in Phoenix last night. Those West Coast trips are always brutal. The next two games are tough as well. But I do think we want them to not, as long as they're one of the top three. Again, ideally you want to have the second, but they lose the tiebreaker with Boston. So it's going to be tough to jump them. You just don't want to mess around and have Cleveland jump us. I think right now they're still 2.5 games up with 8 to play. So we're in good, but the schedule's tough. But I think the big thing for the Phillies, the big thing for the Sixers is just stay healthy, get into the playoffs, and then see what we can do from there. Harden is still not playing either, so I mean, take that what you will out of that loss. The past two games they haven't had Harden in the lineup as he's resting, and again, we just want to make sure we are healthy going into the playoffs. Union dropped another game last night to Orlando City, 2-1. They're still sitting. I mean, it's still super super early, but they're sitting on the cusp of the playoffs right now. But all right, on this day, we're going to go back to 1991. And on March 26, 1991, the Nets beat the Sixers 98-95 in overtime. Charles Barkley had 32 points, 17 rebounds. Mookie Blaylock had 25, and Derek Coleman had 23 for the Nets. But the big story out of this game, if you think back, was Barkley spit into the stands. There was a heckler who was throwing racial slurs at him and just really being downright nasty to him during this game. So he went to basically spit at him. Obviously did not handle that the right way either, but missed and spit on a little girl. He said afterwards that because he was tired, his mouth was dry. That's why, like, obviously he didn't mean to spit at the little girl, but he was suspended for 1 game and a $10,000 fine for that. But I think the key takeaway from this, if you can find the silver lining, is he kind of did some self-reflecting and thought about everything that sort of went down and why he was doing it. And he was just like, you're so angry. Stop blaming other people for this, that, or the other. Take responsibility. Kind of had that aha moment, realized that, you know what, I'm a damn good player. Just let me go out and let my talents do the talking. So it kind of like changed his life, allowed him to sort of get things together. And after that, like, he kind of was a changed person. And I do think this is when around the time too, with he had the infamous Nike campaign commercial where I am not a role model, and this and that. And I think this was around that time too. So he was able to turn it into a positive. The Sixers that year, that was the last year they made the playoffs for a long, long time. They ended up losing. They swept in the first round. I think it was Milwaukee. Then they lost to the Bulls in the second round, 4-1. But that was Michael Jordan's first championship team. So, and then we know Barkley played one more season in Philly, was traded to the Phoenix Suns. So on this day in 1991, the Nets beat the Sixers in overtime, but the big story was Charles Barkley trying to spit on a heckler who was shouting racial slurs at him, missed, hit a little girl, but fortunately for him, he was able to turn it into a positive. Shout out to Vivian Stringer for just being an amazing coach, being the only male or female to take a HBCU or to a Final Four, the first ever male or female to take 3 different teams to the Final Four, just being an inspiration for many. We were watching the South Carolina game actually on TV. My daughter was really into it, and I was trying to explain to her Dawn Staley, so kind of passing the torch down now through the generations. So shout out to you, Vivian, for that. Let's just hope the Sixers can get through the next 8 games relatively healthy and not out of the top 3. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I apologize for the shortness today and the fact that my voice sounds crazy. Hopefully I'm not getting the strep throat that was going around. But like I said, this is This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Sunday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.